Of our board, we will now call this meeting to order. And we will begin with the adoption of the agenda.
Okay. Do we just need a motion to approve?
Yep.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Next, we'll move to public comment on closed session. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on the phones? Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee West of Lusk. I just want to know if there's any other numbers being floated by the GA or the Navy regarding allocations in any of these lawsuits. If they're getting away from the 7650 sustainable yield.
I guess I should take that question, Chair. I'm not sure if I understand the question, Renee. I will say this, we're not at any point in the litigation right now where allocations would be put forward. That would happen in the third phase, if ever. There is the situation where the Navy, in this first phase of trial on the Navy's Federal Reserve right, is putting out what its reserve right is. We at the GA did not determine the Navy's Federal Reserve right because we did not have the ability to do that, but we believed an estimated range of the Navy's Federal Reserve right based on what we were provided, and the Navy's Federal Reserve right that they're claiming in court corresponds roughly with that number. Aside from that, if you want to give me a call, I can answer any questions you might have offline.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Any other callers online? Caller, go ahead. Okay. So that ends our public comment. We will now move into closed session. Begin our open session. We'll begin with a report out on closed session. This will be with Phil Hall.
Thank you, Chair. The board met in closed session on the 4 items listed on the agenda. There is nothing to report aside from one item. The board met in closed session and unanimously agreed, unanimously agreed with the exception of the Water District, who was not involved in the closed session, to hire the firm of Richard Watson to deal with litigation filed by Searles Valley related to a public records request. And that's all the report.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody will please stand and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll have a roll call.
Chairman Hayman,
Present.
Vice Chair Peters,
Present.
Director Vallejo.
I'm present.
Present. Director Itmeyer.
Present.
Director Griffin.
Present.
Got it. Okay, moving to item number 6, public comment. This time is reserved for the public to address the board about matters not on the agenda. No action will be taken on non-agenda items unless authorized by law. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, I have a few questions. This is Renee West of Lusk. Do the members of the PAC and the TAC still have to do the California Form 700?
Yes.
Is there someone from the GA that could be sent as a speaker to meet with clubs and NGOs who could be a spokesperson and point of information to educate groups and the public on the facts of the IWVGA?
Well, that would be a policy question for the board, but typically the general manager would serve in that role.
Would the general manager be able to come out to actually meet with a group, though, or a club?
Would you like me
Go
to
ahead.
respond? So Renee, I guess if you have some specific engagements, we can secure a speaker. It may or may not be me, but we can certainly make sure that there's someone to do that if you have specific engagements for us.
Okay.
So just let me know.
Okay. And then I have another question. Could the IWVGA sponsor a column in the Daily Independent that would be a fact checker about information being put out there on the GA that does not come from the GA but from another source claiming to be factual?
Is the question, is it legally possible for us to do that, or are you making the suggestion that that would be a good idea?
Well, I'm making the suggestion that it would be a good idea. As like a point of information for the public.
Well, I think we could work with our outreach consultant to see what's feasible there. It's a great suggestion.
And then lastly, who do I contact on the GA or that communications firm that you've hired when I witness unvetted information that I know is not true or that is most likely not true about the GA?
Yeah, absolutely. Just bring that to me, and I can work with our consultant to see what we can do to get the information corrected.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Judy Decker. Thank you, Renee. I brought this up to you several times at several different meetings, and I agree with her. You need to put a column in the newspaper and maybe even have a Facebook page, because there is a lot of misinformation being posted on social media. And you need to get the word out as to who you are and what the purpose of this organization is. You have received and spent millions of taxpayer dollars. And with our new president, taxpayer dollars is of utmost importance. For instance, I believe this weekend is a home show. It would have been a good opportunity for you to have a booth there and to meet with people and talk to them, because people are very confused. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will move to item number 7, board member comments. Any comments from our board? Okay, hearing none. Item number 8, consent agenda. This will consist of items 8A, B, and C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Does any member of the public wish to have an item pulled? Any member of the board wish to have an item pulled?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we do need to pull item C3.
Okay. And so,
I'll make
You
a
want me to take
motion
it,
to
or-
approve the remaining items with the exception of 8C3.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
aye?
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnyer,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Okay, so coming back to item C3, so the amount of $61,130.98 to the Indian Wells Valley Water District for consolidation, that number is changed. It will be minus $4,389 for attorney for the Water District Jim Worth's fees. Those will be removed from that $61,000 amount, and he will resubmit at a later time for that amount. So that will bring the number down to $56,741.98. So that's what we're looking at approving. So,
Mr.
Any
Chair, would you
questions?
like me to give you kind of a brief report in support of that? Sure. Just very quickly. So this is, as you can see, this is an expense reimbursement requested by the district related to work performed in the Rodmacher situation. After the agenda was posted, we got a notice from Jim Worth, who's the attorney for the Water District, saying that some of his legal bills were included in error. And so that the amount of his invoices were higher than they should have been. We asked him to clarify that. He apparently has not had a chance to do that yet. So what we're proposing is, rather than just deny the whole thing, that you approve the portion that doesn't seem to be in controversy or be in error, and then the district can come back with whatever the corrected amount of his invoices are. So expect to see this again, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
very good. Any questions from the board?
No. Well, I'll make a motion to approve.
Probably need to bring it to public comment first. So, any public comment on the floor? Seeing none, any public comments on the phones? None. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye?
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnyer,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Okay, moving to item number 9, professional services agreement with Regional Government Services. This will be with our General Manager, Carol.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your packet is a staff report as well as the proposed contract extension with Regional Government Services. That's the agency that provides your administrative services, includes myself and includes April, your clerk of the board, and also our accountants, our finance manager, and other support services. We normally do these one-year agreements. We did a short-term, and I'll apologize for that, we did a short-term extension to take us through March because we normally bring this to you in December, and we were thinking that we weren't going to have a December meeting, and when we did, our executive director was not available to help us with the contract. So we did a short-term renewal, and so now we're bringing you the contract to take us through the end of this year. And it's essentially the same scope of work that you've seen in previous years. There is a modest increase to the billing rate for April and for me. However, the overall budget has not changed from 2024.
Thank you, Carol. Any comments or questions from the board?
I would just say that I think just a good general practice is having a performance reviews and evaluations, and I think there's a provision for that in the contract. So I would like to see the board and Carol and your RGS team meet and just kind of discuss where we're at, where we're going, and things moving forward. So I would make that that request.
Any other comments from the board? Any comments from any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, any public comments on the phones? None? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye?
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itnire, Director Itnire, and Director Griffin. Motion carries. He did have technical difficulties at the last meeting, so I will shoot him a text message real quick.
Sorry about that.
Okay, we had a motion and a second to approve the the professional services agreement with RGS, and I was just calling for your vote on that.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'd like to get clarification, Mr. Chair, on Supervisor Peters' comments. The request was made for a performance evaluation. Is that, do we have direction from the board to do that? And should it be as a closed session item at a meeting, or do you guys want to do an ad hoc committee and do it that way? What's the pleasure of the board?
I'm fine with either way. I don't, if one other board member wants to join, make it an ad hoc thing, I'm fine with that. If the board would like to do it as a whole as part of a closed session, I'd be open to that as well.
I would be good with a closed session.
Yeah, I think closed session's appropriate.
Okay, so we'll put it on for the next closed session, next meeting closed session?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, moving to item number 10, board review and potential action on periodic evaluation. This will be with Jeff Housley.
Good morning, Board. Yes, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act requires that groundwater authorities review their approved sustainability plans at least every 5 years and provide a written assessment to DWR of that review. This is called a periodic evaluation. At the last board meeting, I went over the contents of the periodic evaluation that had been prepared. The draft periodic evaluation was put on the Groundwater Authority's website on February the 15th for public review. It was requested that comments be received by March the 1st. We received 5 sets of comments. One of them was from the Navy pointing out that we didn't have the up-to-date claim by the Navy for the federally reserved right, and we've revised that in the final periodic evaluation. The Indian Wells Valley Water District Board sent a letter stating that there hadn't been public input into the periodic evaluation and insufficient review time, and stating that the periodic evaluation should consider a cost estimate they had prepared on the imported water project and should consider the reports that they, in association with some of the other litigants in the basin, prepared on the groundwater and storage in basin and the safe yield of the basin, and also urge consideration of the new model of the basin, which is not as of yet is not available. We also received a letter from Searles Valley Minerals attorney asking for access to the groundwater authorities and Navy's model of the basin, and stating that the periodic evaluation should consider the groundwater storage and safe yield reports prepared by the Water District and Searles and others. Judy Decker provided comments, and she may want to elaborate on that. Comments that additional efforts were needed in communication from the Groundwater Authority, that there wasn't discussion of the new monitoring well and what was learned from it in the El Paso area, the EP1 well. there wasn't, no, saying that there wasn't any discussion of the total decline in groundwater and storage in the basin, and stating that the fallowing and the potential for dust and need for dust mitigation needed to be better addressed. And I believe it include a statement that DWR may be concerned that we haven't obtained water rights for our imported water project. Yes. Don Decker submitted very good comments. He made very strong statements about how we reported to use the AME study, the aerial electromagnetic study that was done on the basin, in updating our model. He's spoken to the board about that before. Commented that the domestic well production estimate that we had, made comments on that. Also made comments on the need for dust control, and made comments that about information that could be included on the El Paso Basin. Staff recommends that the board approve submittal of the periodic evaluation to DWR. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. We'll bring it to the board for any questions or comments. Hearing none, Jeff, so thank you, sir. Okay, we'll bring it to the public, to the floor for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, any public comment on the phones? None? So we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye?
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Etnier,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Okay, moving to item number 11, board to receive and file 2024 water year annual report. This will be with Heather with Stetson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm on the phone. Yes, this presentation is an update and summary of the water year 2024 annual report. Slide 2, please. To provide background, it is a SIGMA requirement to submit an annual report to DWR to report on the previous water year. Major components of the report include documenting progress towards achieving sustainability, groundwater elevation data, and water supply data. Next slide. This slide provides an outline of how the annual report is organized. It is consistent with previous annual reports, and you can see the chapters there on this slide. Next slide. This slide documents major accomplishments in water year 2024 as we work towards achieving sustainability in the basin. For the imported water project, the 30% design was completed. Additionally, draft biological assessment and a draft biological evaluation was prepared for sensitive species in the valley. Continued discussions and negotiations took place for the purchase of imported water supplies, and a draft right-of-way acquisition plan was prepared. For the shallow well mitigation program, the board did approve 2 applications for partial funding to replace wells. The shallow well mitigation report form and fact sheets were updated. And as a new project, we are developing the shallow well consolidation project with the water district, and that is funded by the Urban Community Drought Relief Grant. Other major tasks in water year 2024 include the preparation of the 2025 periodic evaluation that Jeff just reported on, and that addressed the recommended corrective actions that were provided by DWR. We also updated and made upgrades to the numerical groundwater flow model. In addition to these milestones listed, other milestones have been met in water year 2025 that were after the reporting period for this annual report. Next slide, please. This slide provides an update on the sustainable management criteria. For both chronic lowering of groundwater levels and degraded water quality, representative monitoring sites were evaluated in water year 2024. Some modifications were made to the selection of these sites, and sustainable management criteria were established at all sites, especially at those that did not already have criteria set for them. And no minimum thresholds were exceeded in water year 2024. Next slide. This slide provides a chart that shows the annual precipitation and the water year type classification for the valley. In water year 2024, there was 3.41 inches of precipitation, which classifies it as a normal year. If you look at the past few years documented on that chart, you can see that there has been wide variability in the water year type classifications, and they do range from dry to wet in just a short amount of years. Next slide. Hydrographs have been prepared for all the representative monitoring sites, as well as other key monitoring sites of significance. And those are provided in the annual report, and they are posted on the data management system. In water year 2024, there was a total loss of groundwater in storage of approximately 9,194 acre feet. This was estimated using the modified T's and polygon method as described in the annual report. The cumulative 5-year change was a loss of 67,553 acre feet. That's cumulative over the past 5 years. Okay, next slide, please. This table provides groundwater extraction data. The estimate for the water year 2024 groundwater extraction is 20,840 acre feet. That's compiled from reported pumping and estimates just from best available sources. Next slide, please. This chart shows the past several years and our total estimated pumping. In water year 2024, the production was 2.7 times the estimated sustainable yield of 7,650 acre feet. So continued overdraft conditions are occurring. Next slide, please. The next steps would be to submit this annual report to DWR by the deadline of April 1st. There has been continued and ongoing data collection, and that continues each year into water year 2025. To update you, the spring groundwater level data collection did occur about a week and a half ago. So we did obtain all the March groundwater level data. That's currently being processed. And of course, there's continued implementation of the GSP, including the projects and management actions. This concludes my update on the annual report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Heather. We'll bring back to the board for any questions or comments from the board. Okay, seeing none. Public comment from the floor. Any public comments on the phones? None? Okay, and I don't know that this doesn't require any board action, so, okay, receive it and file. All right, very good. Moving on to item number 12, Provost and Pritchard's change order for rare plant survey. This will be with Bianca with Stetson.
Hello, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so as you guys know, Provost and Pritchard is the CEQA, NEPA, and permit documentation consultant for the imported water project. The preliminary design originally planned for the power of the pump stations to be taken from existing Southern California Edison lines that cross Garlock Road, and then they would be distributed to pump stations numbers 2 and number 3 from a substation by power lines to be constructed adjacent to Garlock Road. SCE is now proposing that the power for pump stations numbers 2 and 3 to come from facilities approximately 4 miles south of the pump station. This new power line alignment will require additional surveys and analysis to be incorporated into the environmental assessment and environmental impact report for the project, including for biological and cultural resources, including through botanical surveys. Botanical surveys must be conducted in the springtime when plants are within their blooming period and can be easily observed and definitively identified. So if the survey is not conducted within the next few weeks, it will need to be conducted a year from now, which would delay completion of the environmental review for the project. Provost and Pritchard have provided a change order to conduct the single botanical survey, which will focus on rare plant habitat assessment, identification of any special status plants, and identification of any vegetation communities for the potential of Mojave ground squirrels that may occur in the survey area. The survey will be conducted late March to early 2025. It should also be noted that scopes and budgets are being developed for additional biological and cultural surveys that will be needed and will be brought to a future board meeting for consideration. But this survey is being presented now due to the time-sensitive nature of it. The current cost of Provost and Pritchard's contract for environmental work is $1,506,114. This change order is proposing an increase in budget of $20,000, which updates the not to exceed fee of the contract to $1,526,114. Staff recommends the approval of this change order. If there's any questions on Provost and Pritchard's coordination with Southern California Edison, there's a description in the staff report, and we also have Jeff Davis and Mike McGovern from the design team to answer any of those questions. We also have Mary Beth Bourne from Provost and Pritchard's environmental team in case there's any questions about the surveys itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. We'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments.
What was the total amount of the environmental contract originally?
Originally, it was $1,506,114.
Okay. And that was when that was first issued? This is the only change order we've had?
Oh, you know what? I'm so sorry. The original is $1,013,722,000. That $1,506,000 cost was includes the previous change orders that has been approved.
Okay. I would like to request that in the future, if any change orders need to happen for Provost and Pritchard, that they need to be here to explain that, because $500,000 on $1 million contract is an over-the-top change order, and I think the public deserves to understand that a little bit more. I get it, but I would like to see them here.
And I think in fairness, you made that request before as well.
I have,
So
yeah.
we should have, staff should make a note that if we've got any more of these, that they need to be attending.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will note that. Thank you.
Chairman, if I may, I'm not going to go into detail on all of the change orders, but we've had two real extensive change orders, which had to do with BLM requirements related to analyzing and having experts out there to look at species and fauna. Those were the real impacts. We've wound up having to have two sets of experts go out and essentially walk the entire 50 miles. This is a similar change order. And by the way, those were all predicated on particular times in the year that they could do this. So we've had some unusual change orders related to the unusualness of a desert, which doesn't have a lot of time period for the flowers and fauna and creatures to do what they do, to be studied. So that's the largest part of this. This is similar to that in that this is a $20,000 change order to look at this one this one power line alignment, which may or may not occur, but because of the time sensitivity of the season, it's being brought forward now.
I got that. I appreciate it. And I'm not doubting the validity of it, but especially with such significant change orders, I just think that it's in the best interest of the public for them to be here to explain that in person.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we will go to public comment. Any public comment from the floor?
Judy Decker again. I urge you to vote this change order in so it can be done directly.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, we'll move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Renee West-Lusk.
We can hear you, Renee. Go ahead.
Where does the money come from to pay for all the change orders? It's always been a mystery for me. Is it coming from the $7.6 million grant money the state gave us, or is it from some other federal grants we were able to obtain to help cover the cost overruns?
It's part of the $7.6 million grant.
Okay, so we have the money to pay for these cost overruns. Okay.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but that program is done after next month, and it's done at the end of April, correct?
Correct, yeah. And Chairman Heyman is correct. It is coming out of the $7.6 million. But the $7.6 million is not enough to finish the project. So it's all coming from the same
Right.
source. Jeff may have.
And so,
Yeah, we actually got an extension on that first grant, that 7.6 million. We got an extension to a year from the end of next month. And as Steve said, the 7.6 million wasn't enough, but we also got an EPA grant. We got a notice that we're being awarded an EPA grant that so far would cover the costs, although we've been trying to contact our grant manager for the EPA grant and have not heard back.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, no further callers on the phones. We'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
I'll second.
Chairman Heyman,
Aye?
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itmeyer,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Okay, moving to item number 13, amendment number 1 to reimbursement agreement with Antelope Valley East Kern. This will be with Bianca, with Stetson.
yes. Yes. Okay, so as you guys know, the project is going to bring imported water supplies into the basin through a connection from AVEC. In February 2024, the authority adopted a resolution authorizing a reimbursement agreement with AVEC for project scoping review which includes their time and expenses towards their review and coordination of the project. The agreement required an initial deposit of $75,000 that was provided, and the term of the agreement expired just this February of this year. AVEX consultant Kennedy Jenks Consultants previously prepared a connection analysis to examine potential tie-in locations on AVEX transmission system using their hydraulic model. And to provide a stronger environmental document, AVEC, as the project's responsible agency under CEQA, requested the inclusion of a future phase to the project for CEQA analysis that includes an enlarged carrying capacity for the California City pipeline going back to the to AVEC's Mojave Tank Farm that may be needed in the future. Last month, the authority's general manager requested that AVEC have additional modeling be performed to estimate the timing of when the Mojave Tank alignment might be needed to be brought online, and to provide data on hydraulic conditions in AVEC's system needed for the project's pump station design. The additional modeling work is estimated at approximately $50,000, and that would exceed the available balance of the authority's initial deposit that was provided to AVEC last year. So in order for AVEC to continue undertaking their project scoping review and supporting the project's design, an amendment is required to extend the term of the agreement. The amendment also includes language to document the additional deposit of $75,000. Per the agreement, any unused funds at the completion of AVEC's project scoping review will be refunded to the authority, and AVEC will provide full accounting of costs incurred to be paid by the deposit to the authority. Staff recommends the board approve the amendment, which extends the terms of the agreement by an additional 24 months, and to provide an additional $75,000 to AVEC. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bianca. We'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. Okay. Seeing none, we'll bring it to the public for public comment from the floor. Any public comment from the phones? Okay. And we'll bring it back to the board for a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Chairman Hayman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Peters,
Aye.
Director Vallejo,
Aye.
Director Itneyer,
Aye.
Director Griffin. Motion carries.
Okay, moving to item number 14, the Water Resources Manager's Report. This will be with Steve Johnson with Stetson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I rarely get to say good morning during the Water Resources Manager Report. It's usually afternoon, so it's going fast. I just want to kind of quickly say thank you to Heather and Bianca for making those reports. Thank you, guys. Good work. The Water Resource Manager Report is written as part of the packet, so it's all there. I'll just briefly go through some of the high points that I think are interesting or important to you folks. Starting out with the grant funding, as you know, we have the implementation grant that's doing the design work for the pipeline on our new water replenishment, our imported water pipeline. Under the invoice number 9, which is listed in the Water Resource Manager Report, which covers July through September of 2024. The invoice was almost $1.2 million. That was approved and paid. The money's been received, so it's in. Invoice number 10, which is the next invoice, covers October through December. DWR has it. And it's for a little over $500,000 to $505,000. So we haven't had any comments back on it. We're waiting for approval, and ultimately, we expect payment on that, too. We also have the Urban Community Drought Relief Program funding, the consolidation grant, about $3.35 million. And this is sort of this grant really came along, and it's supplementing a bit of the work we're doing on the shallow well program that was originally a part of the GSP. One of the projects we are working on right now, alongside with the Water District, which we just got some updates this morning from George and from Jason here, on the Rademacher Consolidation Project, pretty much a water quality issue related to groundwater levels. A new water supply to the Rademacher. It's called the Rademacher because one of the residents, but it's in that general area. It's going to serve several residents in that area, but it's a pipeline extension from the Water District. It's underway. There's been a couple of delays. We've been reporting in the past that there's been some delays. It's pretty much in the Water District's hands now. Design is done. They're ready to go. I think the materials are all there. It's been reported. Materials are all on site. There's been some concerns on the Water District side related to reliability of water service during their tie-ins. The last thing they want to do is have an issue with a tie-in that ends up damaging one of the pipelines and affects water supply to other customers. So they're doing some work to make sure that all those systems are ready to go before they actually do the work, especially in the tie-in. But as I understand it, and George and Jason are both here, can certainly comment. As I understand it, the pipe will be moved to the site, and then we'll start work on it, start trenching. So you'll see activity out there very soon. We're scheduled to be in April, so we will see some activity out there, which is good to get going on that. Phase 2 involves more of a regional connection of that same line to bring it around to do some more work out there. Design work at the Water District is currently underway on that. We are also, and this was authorized at a previous board meeting, we are also using some of this grant money to work on the feasibility study for the Stark Street area to bring an extension of water supply to the Stark Street area. So we're working on that. We'll be bringing back some results of that assignment in probably the next couple of board meetings. As far as invoicing, our invoice number 3, July, September 2024 was about $27,000, approved, payment received. Invoice number 4, and that's from October to December, for almost $24,000. It's in at DWR. We haven't heard any comments back, so we're awaiting approval and then subsequently payment. On the pipeline, we provide a summary, and there's an extensive summary in there. If you want to see what's going on the pipeline, it's all here. It's a page and a half of what's going on. The first item is really on just design. The first item is really on the design services, a lot of detail on what's going on with the design. There is a list of about 9 or 10 items that are coming up, next steps. And then actually the milestones, and I'll let you know the milestones is probably most important. We're expected to receive 90% design plans by June of this year, and then 100% design comments and turnaround 100% design by the end of this year, 2025. So that's good. So we're on track. We currently have 60% design. For the environmental services, you saw a change order there today that was approved for some work on the environmental work. As far as milestones, they expect to finalize the NEPA compliance for the geotechnical borings and environmental survey studies within the BLM property. They're working on that. That's a milestone we're working on. We want to complete all the technical analysis, the special studies within the BLM land along the Mojave Tank Farm alignment and additional Edison alignment, which that was part of today's change order, and then complete the biological monitoring of the remaining soil boring. So that's the work coming up on environmental. So they're out there working. On the right-of-way services, primarily, we expect to receive the final right-of-way acquisition plan by late 2025. We are currently reviewing the draft. So by late this year, probably the fall, we'll expect to have the final right-of-way plan, which will describe all the properties that need to be acquired to build this pipeline outside of Kern County, which is providing a large chunk of the land for this pipeline alignment. They want to complete the plats and the legal descriptions by mid-2025, and then complete all the actual appraisals of the land by the end of 2025. So by the end of this year, we should have a pretty good handle on land acquisition and land requirements to actually build this pipeline. Submittals at DWR. We have submitted the, well, actually, the IP grant agreement, as Jeff reported earlier. We applied for an extension, time extension on it. That was submitted to DWR and reviewed and essentially approved. We're just awaiting final signature from DWR on an extension for that grant agreement. So that's the only submittal we have there. We are still coordinating with the Army Corps of Engineers for potential work on in-kind services. I'd mentioned before, and it hasn't changed, the way we are moving forward on this pipeline and the work that needs to be done to keep the pipeline project moving under the grant requirements and schedules doesn't leave a lot of room for the Corps of Engineers to help us on projects or assignments because they need to be turned around very quickly. And as most folks know, the Corps takes, there's a certain process just to get the Corps on board, much less actually get an assigned staff to do the work, get the work done. So we're still essentially working on that. For the pipeline construction, everybody's aware that we got some WARTA funding, initial funding of $50 million. A big step on that was at the February board meeting, the board approved a letter of intent. Real big thanks to Capital Corps and their group for helping us get through this. They're the ones with the experience on this process. And getting the letter of intent was a big step toward getting that funding going for our construction project. Shallow well mitigation program, we've mentioned we've gone through a couple of shallow well mitigation funding applications and funding agreements or funding assignments. We don't have any applications right now. We do have a resident who has some well issues. We are basically just waiting for him to complete his application, get his application in. And one of the requirements of applying for a shallow well assistance on a shallow well impacted well is that they have the well registered with the Groundwater Authority. So we still need to accomplish that too. At the end of this, we have additional items, data collection and monitoring, all the other work that we've done in the past continues, help support the annual report and the GSP periodic evaluation. As far as the Navy COSO, we're working on the funding agreements. We've had a couple of extensions on the funding agreements and the permitting process to add that second monitoring well in the Rose Valley area. So that's still coming, but we're having to extend some of the time requirements to actually design and construct the second monitoring well. I think that's all I have for the Resources Manager report, unless there's any questions.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board for any questions or comments. I do have just a couple of clarification. Is there, on the Rademacher consolidation update, is there any deadline to when the project has to be completed by with that grant?
Oh, no, there's not. No,
Okay.
we don't have a deadline problem. I think as we talked with George and Jason this morning, we certainly want to try to avoid moving into the hot summer period again, which we tried to avoid last year. So, I think Jason indicated he's going to do that, so.
Okay,
I think we're
and so
in good
the issue as to why that project can't be completed is because the service pipe is of a quality that's not compatible to fix. Well, I think it's a valid question. Is it because the pipe is dilapidated and the service isn't possible at this point in time, and so that has to be repaired before the project can be brought into?
George Kroll, Indian Wells Valley Water District. Let's just say that we don't, especially in a place like the Indian Wells Valley with China Lake Naval Air Warfare Station close by, my DoD experience is that it's generally not a good idea to talk about the vulnerabilities in your system too much in public. So we're aware of what's going on, and we just ask that, we've let the people in Rademacher know what's going on. Just let's not put out there to the public information that could be used by our adversaries, please.
Okay, so does it change the fact that will be delayed because the quality of the existing pipeline doesn't meet the level to fix it. So that's concerning because, I mean, that's a couple massive, line failures. From the city's perspective, it's concerning. So any other questions or comments from the board? Any public comment from the floor?
Joshua Nugent from Mojave Pistachios. But just real quick, I wanted to say that the Neal Ranch wells were sounded recently, I believe, as part of the most recent survey of the area, and so that was part of our agreement, and we're excited to be part of science. I think referencing, just reference the Navy. You got the Navy, you've got the BLM, you've got the Water District, you got all the private parties. There's a lot of science going on in the basin. So just one other little recommendation was, I actually had a hard time finding the IWGSP website that has all of our database stuff on it. And so if we could maybe put that on the agenda, because that was actually a really helpful source for us, because that's, got all of the well data and all that type of stuff. So that's kind of a neat map for the public to be able to see stuff. So that was just kind of a little recommendation. And then I know it is on the website, but you have to go to general information and kind of go down to find it. So maybe if we could just kind of put it at the top as one of the main things, because if you Google it, it doesn't really come up right away. But anyway, I just think for whoever's in the public, I believe it's iwvgsp.com, and it's got all the well information and the different maps and stuff. So if you're like a data person, it's kind of neat to see. So anyway, just want to say we think ultimately that the long-term future for the valley is good science, and so you need more data to do good science. So we're glad to be a part of that. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Josh. Any other public comments from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phones. Any caller, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Renee West-Dulusk. In the Water Resource Manager's report about the second Rose Valley monitoring well, what's the reasoning behind having a second monitoring well?
Following up with, following up with Josh Nugent, it's a data collection point. That Rose Valley area provides a significant amount of subflow, underflow into the basin as part of our supply. So we're trying to gather as much information as we can to quantify that as accurately as we can. So both wells were included in a Navy COSO application and grant approval to put 2 monitoring wells in that area. So it's just additional data.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Okay, seeing no further public comment on the phones, we will move to item number 15, the General Manager's report with Carol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in your packet is the financial report. This is actually a budget to actual report for the end of 2024. And it does include February accruals. And if you look at the cash balance statement, you'll see the balance through the end of February. A brief update on our communication and engagement plan update. We are continuing to meet weekly with our outreach consultant westbound, and so we are working on improved communications, additional press releases, new information to include in our website. I appreciate the comments that we heard today from several of you, and I'll be bringing those back to our group this afternoon when we meet. We do have a report from Capitol Corps. Before I go there, though, to see if Michael McKinney's on the phone to add anything more, let me just say briefly that we did have a chance to meet with transient pool members earlier this month, or it might have even been the end of February, just a couple of weeks ago, and basically to review the draft resolution that you had a chance to review last month. We've given it to them for their comments and asked them to let us have their comments and their thoughts by around the end of this month. And we hope to have, hope to have it final by April, or at least back for your review in April. So, and just circling back to the Capital Core report, I don't know, do we have Michael or Jeff on the phone? Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I am on the phone, Carol. No, I'm available for questions if the board has any.
Okay, any questions from the board for Michael? I believe you're off the hook today, Michael. Thank you, sir.
That's all for me.
Thank you, Carol. Any questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, any public comment from the floor? Any public comments on the phones? Seeing none, we'll now move, well, that concludes the general manager's report. And so item number 16 is date of our next meeting. That will be April 9th, 2025. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.